Hello, welcome to ITV News Meridian here in the southeast.
Your headlines this Tuesday evening. Police investigate 7 cases of spiking by injection, a warning to partygoers as nightclubs step up security.
It's obviously concerning for us and for the public. We want to make sure that everybody is safe when they're out in public. Everybody has the right to be safe in the nighttime economy.
The rubbish clear-up continues in Brighton and Hove amid calls for residents to get a council tax rebate.
Also tonight, are you doing the right thing in feeding your garden birds? The message on the do's and don'ts.
And a dream come true for the Shrimpers. Fans celebrate as a new stadium for the city of Southend is approved. Good evening to you. There are concerns tonight over a danger to clubbers and partygoers from a new form of spiking. Now, in recent incidents across the southeast, victims have fallen ill after being injected.
Police in Sussex are investigating attacks on 7 women in the last week and are stepping up nighttime patrols. In Kent, safety campaigners are calling for a boycott of nightclubs tomorrow to raise awareness of the extent of spiking.
Well, as Malcolm Shaw now reports, police want drinkers and clubbers to be on their guard, but they do stress these attacks are rare.
With COVID restrictions lifted and universities now back, nighttime venues are busier than they've been for months. But with that comes a new danger to a good night out. Spiking, not just of drinks, but by direct injection too. In Sussex, police are investigating after 7 women reported being spiked by needles in the last week. 6 here in Brighton, 1 in Eastbourne.
Each of those people who've reported it are being supported by officers who are completing a thorough and full investigation, considering all lines of inquiry to try and identify the full circumstances of what has happened and identify any perpetrators so they can be brought to justice.
Rhian Schillerbeer, a student at the University of Kent, has experienced having her drink spiked. She's among campaigners organising a boycott of nightclubs tomorrow to raise awareness of the danger from all forms of spiking.
Unfortunately, I have been spiked. It happened only last month. I was with some amazing friends who took care of me and made sure I got home safe and was looked after. But it was terrifying. I didn't really know what was going on with me. I lost control of all of my limbs, throwing up on the bathroom floor.
Many nightclubs have introduced devices to help prevent drinks being spiked. It's less clear how to stop spiking by injection, but some venues are stepping up security and searches on the door. Meanwhile, the fear of being targeted is all too real for many.
You feel like you're not safe anywhere, really. Like, you'd never know if someone did that to you, so I think it's just kind of puts you off going out anymore.
Obviously, if you're drinking as well, you're not going to be necessarily, you may not be aware that someone is spiking you with a needle.
It's quite concerning for any parent, isn't it? Because we want our children to be safe.
It shouldn't be our responsibility to have to be safe. It should be taught in schools. It should be in gender studies. It should be just a normal human thing to be able to talk about and say, don't spike people, don't jab them.
Sussex police say they're now stepping up nighttime patrols and working with venues to try to tackle all types of spiking, including by injection. Malcolm Shaw, ITV News, Brighton.
The Ramsgate mother of 2 murdered sisters is to receive an apology from the Metropolitan Police after an investigation found their disappearance wasn't properly investigated. Nicole Smallman and Bieber Henry were found stabbed in a park in Wembley in June last year. The Independent Office for Police Conduct found mistakes were made and information had been recorded inaccurately.
A man who was on bail for attacking 3 emergency service workers has been jailed for an unprovoked assault in Chatham. Tony Mazzoni used a knife on a man who'd been sitting with a group on the high street. He'd previously been charged with throwing urine at a paramedic and 2 police officers.
Public consultation launches today about proposed car parking charges at Ashdown Forest. Conservatives are considering the action due to a funding shortage made worse extra pressure on the land during the pandemic. They need money for repairs to car parks, tracks and bridges.
Managing a 6,500 hectare, 1.4 million visitor, internationally protected wildlife site costs a lot of money. And we have some serious issues with our income at the moment. It has changed considerably over the last couple of years. It's never easy changing something from being free to having to pay for something, and we understand that, and we would rather not be doing this, but we are in a position where we have to. What I would say to people is please take part in the consultation.
Now, it could take more than a week before bin collections in Brighton and Hove are back to normal. A strike by refuse lorry drivers ended a week ago, but piles of rubbish are still visible in parts of the city.
Well, officials say there's still a huge backlog to deal with, and one opposition councillor has told ITV Meridian residents deserve a council tax rebate. Tom Savides has the latest.
Street cleaning teams are out removing rubbish from across Brighton and Hove. They never walked out. The bin lorry drivers did. But no council litter or refuse worker was allowed to clear the bags from the streets until a week ago, when the strike ended.
What's it been like getting out to clean the streets after a strike?
Well, we're finally happy to be able to do it, because we've only been able to leave it, clean up around them before, clear all the rubbish, but we had to leave it in piles because of the strike rules. Now we can finally get to throwing it in our trucks and tipping it.
Rubbish in certain parts of Brighton and Hove is still piled high, but the council says it's doing everything it can to ensure that bins are collected. But it's warning that services might not return back to normal for at least another week. The Green Run Council says it's facing a huge task, but Conservative councillor Dawn Barnett says people should get a council tax rebate for the weeks of missed collections.
I really feel the council should refund at least 1 month's council tax that they paid, because they weren't getting the service. I know the Greens like us to use bikes, but there's no way you can take rubbish to the tip on a bike.
There are almost 700 communal bins in the city. Many, like this one, have been emptied and the pavement and road around it cleaned. But some streets still look like dumping grounds.
Our members are picking up a huge amount of waste and a huge amount of rubbish and recycling. In fact, the tonnages are probably through the roof, to be honest with you, right now. So they're trying their very best. All we just need is everybody's patience.
The strike may be over, but there's still a backlog of discarded rubbish blighting some of the streets. Tom Savides, ITV News, Brighton.
In other news, a groundbreaking cancer trial has begun in Kent and Medway today. A new blood test aims to detect more than 50 types of cancer before symptoms appear. Participants aged between 50 and 77 will give samples at a mobile clinic touring the county. Initial results of the study are expected by 2023.
Businesses in Sussex are calling on the government to extend the lower VAT rate of 5% as they recover from the pandemic. The Federation of Small Businesses says smaller firms in the visitor economy would benefit from such a move and provide a breathing space for those really struggling.
Ramsgate Football Club have partnered with Manston Airport to provide free hot meals and activities for children today. The half-term camp is open to all children but won't cost anything to those who are eligible for free school meals.
Now, 2 rare foals have been born at Portland Zoo near Hythe in Kent. The Pavelski horse was thought to be extinct in 1969 before 9 were found in 2 zoos. Well, 300 have now been reintroduced to Magnolia thanks to breeding programmes. The animals are widely thought to be the only true wild horse, and they are beautiful.
They certainly are. They really, really are. Now, the government's under pressure tonight to take much stronger action to stop water companies discharging raw sewage into rivers and into the sea.
Ministers are putting through a new law which they say will reduce the number of storm overflows, that's sewage discharges at times of heavy rain.
But many MPs and members of the House of Lords want a law banning the discharges altogether. Now, we asked our political correspondent Phil Hornby why the government won't agree to that.
That's a good question. It's obviously a very serious situation and a parliamentary row that's been dragging on here for the best part of the week, started by a member of the House of Lords, the Duke of Wellington, no less, who put forward an amendment basically saying there should be a total ban. The government rejected that amendment and Britain's only Green MP wanted to know why.
That is the part that puts a legal duty that would compel water companies to take immediate action to tackle sewage pollution and so forth. So why is she taking some of the teeth out of this particular amendment?
The government's answer, it would be eye-wateringly expensive.
To get rid of or eliminate storm sewage overflows would cost between, this is a very wide figure, £150 billion to £660 billion.
But MPs of all parties agree something must be done urgently.
This is not just an unusual occurrence. These are now happening more and more frequently, ruining the lives on the Whitstable coast, for example, of kayakers, sailors, swimmers, the tourist industry, and the removal of those lines in particular with teeth, in that amendment is a real disappointment.
The government won the vote, but some Tory MPs rebelled, and one of them says there must be a compromise.
We all need to work together on this, and I want the government to come up with a formulation of words that holds the water companies' feet to the fire more, so that they are not routinely, in some cases, allowing sewage discharges into seas and rivers. And we need to continue to work to make sure that the investment to avoid these sewage discharges is happening at pace.
Work on that compromise is going on behind the scenes here, but the Duke of Wellington is not giving up, and it's likely MPs will have to vote again on this after all the budget's been debated towards the end of next week. We'll let you know what happens.
Phil Hornby in London there for us. Now, many of us may feel a little bit gloomy with the nights drawing in, but the NHS is urging people to seek help if it triggers a form of depression known as seasonal affective disorder.
Yes, it's a condition directly linked to the onset of winter, which is thought to affect tens of thousands of people right across the southeast. Well, Nick Smith reports on efforts to make more people recognise the symptoms.
It's that time of year where the days are getting colder and shorter. And while the changing of the seasons is a natural process we've lived with for countless generations, the prospect that winter is just around the corner can be daunting. People we asked in Maidstone have certainly heard of so-called winter blues.
When it's colder, you feel slightly less willing to go out. But when the sun's shining, don't matter how you feel, it gives you that incentive to go out.
It's just dark mornings. No birds are singing on a morning. Everyone wakes up miserable. They're all stressed out about Christmas.
I would say I get more upset in the summer. I don't enjoy the summer as much. I'm more of a winter person.
Happy all the time in the winter. Serious, I like the rain. I don't like the hot.
You just got to be positive about it. I think in the winter, there's good things. There's hot dessert with custard. What's wrong with that? Stew and dumplings. What's wrong with that?
Dr. Nikat Arif is a GP and tells me that for some people, simple winter blues can develop into seasonal affective disorder, a recognised form of depression, and it's important to recognise the signs.
So excessive sleepiness, your mood really plummets, your ability to do simple tasks, your memory, brain fog, also being able to have any joy or excitement in anything. Patients who have seasonal affective disorder find it difficult to exercise as well. And they really do see the shift in the pattern between the seasons, and it's persistent. With winter blues, it's not that persistency.
Just like how the seasons come and go, so does seasonal affective disorder. Farah Syed is an artist who's suffered from it for a number of years. She finds a release through her work and has learned to try and find positives in the onset of autumn and winter.
I felt a few years ago a sudden increase in anxiety when an autumn season was approaching, purely because I really did enjoy the long days of the summer. So I remember feeling a sense of anxiety, oh God, this is going to get shorter and it's going to be dark at 4 o'clock. Those are the times when I felt a lot more stressful about it. Always try and enjoy the upsides of every season. So for instance, autumn, I do love the colours. Look in the sky, because the sky has stunning cloud formations, and that's always a real boost.
One of the most helpful things you can do for yourself if you're experiencing seasonal affective disorder is to make sure that you are getting exposing yourself to natural light on a daily basis. So going for walks, particularly around midday or on bright days, can be really effective in helping reduce your symptoms. spending time in parks or gardens or just sitting near a window, that can all really help.
Gloomy weather on the outside can certainly cause us to feel gloomy on the inside too. So for those who may struggle with seasonal changes more than most, it's important to recognise that they're not alone and to seek support until brighter things emerge on the horizon. Nick Smith, ITV News.
Well, if you struggle in winter, and many do, of course, there are details on our website of signs to look out for and the support available, itv.com/Meridian.
I know I miss the sunshine and the warmth as well. Well, you are watching ITV News in the Meridian region. We're very glad you're with us this evening. Coming up, lots of course, including Feed the Birds, tuppence a bag. I should have sang it really. While you could do more harm than good with your bird table spending.
And you can find more on today's top stories on our website, itv.com/Meridian. Call us on 0808 1010 095 or follow us, please, on Facebook and on Twitter.
Well, the ITV Evening News continues with the national and international news at 6:30. For more on that, let's go to London and Mary Nightingale.
Coming up in the programme, the public sector pay freeze will end next year. Millions of teachers, police officers and soldiers will get a raise. With prices rising fast, ministers admit they may still be worse off. The students staying at home in protest at a surge in reports of drinks being spiked. And we meet the man who made the biggest of miniature railways. Do join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
We will, Mary. Many thanks. Now, for many Southend United fans, it's a dream come true. After years of campaigning and struggles, of course, in the Football League, it looks like they'll get the new football ground they hope will mark a rebirth in their fortunes.
Yes, last night the City Council approved plans for them to leave Roots Hall and move to a new stadium at Fossett's Farm on the edge of the city. It means rubber stamping by the government now, but supporters are hoping that'll just be a formality. Well, Joe Cosham sent this from Roots Hall in Southend.
Well, there's not been too much for Southend United to shout about on the pitch, sitting in the bottom three of the National League after back-to-back relegation. So this news that's been long awaited of a 22,000-seater stadium by the council have been welcomed, not least by the club's owner Ron Martin, who says it will fulfil the ambitions of the Shrimpers for the next 100 years. And lots of supporters I've been speaking to today very pleased too. Here's clip from one of them, Bob Tolson, who's been a Southend supporter for more than 50 years.
There's been a lot of bad news at the club, in the town lately, and hopefully this is good. It's good not just for the football club, but for the town and hopefully City in the future as well. So I'm quite excited for this. I've got many happy memories of Roots Hall over the years, and not so many in the last few, but for me, going to a new shiny stadium is best, and hopefully it's not to watch football in the National League.
Well, some supporters and local residents have opposed the plan, citing environmental and traffic concerns. They've also raised concerns at the fact that they don't really need a new 22,000-seater stadium when they can barely get 6,000 through the gates here at Roots Hall now. Now, you would say that could be because they're in the National League, but actually if you look at the last time they played their South East rivals Gillingham, that was a similar attendance of around 6,000 fans in the ground. But it's that whole chicken and egg argument, isn't it? So they hope by building the ground that more fans will turn up to the ground. The development will also have to include 1,500 homes. The council say that this has to go hand in hand. Here's the leader, Ian Gilbert.
We've always been very clear that it can't be a case of one or the other. We can't have the housing without the stadium, but on the other hand, the stadium can't work financially without the housing. But in the package of both, it's actually very good news for the town, and it will give us a stadium and housing that we're in serious need of.
Well, the decision on the club stadium is not quite yet rubber stamped. It'll have to go to the government for final approval.
Joe Caution there in Southend. Well, Southend United declined to be interviewed about today's news for that stadium, but Westminster Magistrates Court have confirmed that Ron Martin, the club chairman, has appeared before them in connection with unspecified charges. He's been ordered to appear again at Southwark Crown Court next month.
Now, the limit on our contactless payments has more than doubled from £45 to £100. It's a decision made by the Treasury and Financial Conduct Authority to help boost our economy after the COVID pandemic.
But there are concerns the higher gap could lead to a rise in fraud if your card is stolen. Ravneek Nandra has more.
It's fair to say we've become a tap-and-go society. It's quick, it's easy, and the limit has got a whole lot bigger. But with more to spend at once, can it be dangerous?
As long as you're keeping track of what's coming in and out of your bank on a regular basis, is what I do, then I would have said it was fine, personally.
I was in a restaurant on Saturday night, forgot my PIN number. So my wife steps in and other people were laughing, and then suddenly it comes to you. So that would have been absolutely ideal on Saturday night to pay for the bill.
I think that's ridiculous, because if I've lost my card, people are going to have a great night out, aren't they? Or me. And that's not on.
This isn't the first time the limit on contactless cards has gone up. In April 2020, the limit increased from £30 to £45 after we started to use our card more instead of cash during the pandemic. And it proved popular with shoppers. So now the Treasury and the Financial Conduct Authority have decided to increase the limit again to £100. The latest change also means you can now spend up to £300 using contactless payments before you're asked to enter your PIN number. But there are concerns this change puts us at more risk of fraud.
A higher limit would make a debit card or a credit card a more attractive thing for a thief or for a fraudster to have in their hands. But concerns about people being able to brush past you and swipe your details, it has been done. It's been done by researchers in universities. What we haven't seen is sort of mass adoption of this by criminals.
A spokesperson from the Financial Conduct Authority said current fraud data shows there was no significant increase in contactless payment-related fraud since the limit increased to £45 last year. Despite this, there are still concerns, with multiple gadgets now available to help protect cardholders.
They can invest in what's called an RFID blocker. It's a wallet or a card that you can put next to your card that will stop the signal being sent out. So even if you're in a crowded place and you're worried about somebody scanning your cards when they're not supposed to be doing, that will protect you from people reaching out and taking transactions without your consent or your permission.
So with Christmas round the corner and contactless cards at the ready, high street retailers are hoping shoppers will be happy tapping into the new year. Ravneek Nandra, ITV News.
Now, 17 million UK households apparently enjoy feeding garden birds, but new research shows it could be having a negative impact on some species.
Familiar garden visitors like blue tips are increasing in number, whereas species that are much less likely to visit a bird feeder, like willow tits, are on the decline. With more, Amrit Birdie.
From blue tits to robins to the common wood pigeon, leaving out bird food will tempt a variety of visitors to your door. But rather than giving our feathered friends a tasty treat, garden bird feeding could be adding to the decline in some species and even spreading disease. Keith Betton says the decision to feed or not to feed is not straightforward.
I think a lot of people genuinely want to help birds by feeding them, but they probably don't think actually what's that impact on the bird. If you give them loads of free food at a time when they should be finding something with better quality, it's like, for example, people going out and getting a free hamburger rather than searching to find vegetables for their children, which would be much better for them.
Dr. Alex Lees has been carrying out in-depth research into what the long-term impact could be.
Here in this country, we put out 150,000 tonnes of bird food, and that's, sort of about 64% of household almost. So it's a vast quantity of bird food, costing £250 million, and we have a not particularly good understanding of the ecological impacts of that. And some species go up if we feed them, and some of those species then can interact negatively with other species, which either subordinate species or species which don't accept food handouts at all. So, what we need is a sort of proper understanding of the ecological impact associated with this huge sort of provisioning of resources we offer the natural world.
Experts say stopping garden bird feeding altogether is not the answer, especially when there are other big factors to consider.
The main issue really is to still encourage people to feed birds, because it's great. You get birds coming to your garden, you can see them out your kitchen window, it's amazing. But also to think about, number one, hygiene, so cleaning your bird feeders on a regular basis, and also occasionally moving your birds feeding stations, because sometimes droppings and what have you can accumulate in one spot.
Further research over the next few years hopes to shed more light on whether feeding garden birds does more harm than good. Amrit Birdie, ITV News.
Amrit Birdie, the perfect reporter for that package. Lots of your messages on our Facebook page. Alistair Crook says the problem is with those species like starlings, pigeons and herring gulls. They're prolific breeders with few predators. They thrive at the expense of others.
Well, Maggie Turner got in touch to say, I've just been out to field the bird feeders. 32 pigeons on the roof waiting for their sunflower hearts. They're spoilt.
Samantha Newman, meanwhile, writes, I throw bread out for the birds and normally get doves and crows, but yesterday we had a squirrel. That's happened in our garden too.
Really, that's lovely. Well, and finally, Jill Cumberland says, I don't dare, my cats would think it was a takeaway. I've got a dog like that.
Plenty more views and, of course, pictures on our Facebook page. Lovely weather for the birds, or is it? Let's find out. Here's your forecast now with Holly Green.
Great Western Railway sponsors the ITV Meridian weather.
Good evening. We've had a lot of mild weather this October, haven't we? Last week was mild, today was mild, the coming days are mild as well. A lovely start this morning, this very bright sunrise captured by 11-year-old Lily Kelly, some lovely cloud there. And speaking of cloud, I do think there'll be a fair bit into the coming days, but some bright or some sunny spells to be had. The breeze, though, I think just picking up a little bit too, and obviously that does slightly offset this mild feel. A wedge of warm air in place then, a weather front further north and west, bringing a fair bit of cloud to northwestern parts actually, but not reaching us until later on Friday, although that does then lead the way to a more unsettled weekend and a less mild feel by that stage as well. Out there at the moment, cloud coming and going. We've got a southwesterly breeze, 1 or 2 showers, but they are pretty few and far between. Mostly it's a dry story. And as I say, it is a mild one, yes, so temperatures 14 degrees or so, I think, for many tonight. Not falling an awful lot from our daytime values. Into tomorrow then, cloud coming and going, some spells of sunshine. This southwesterly continues. I think it will be a smidge stronger than today, especially into that south coast. But again, temperatures 15, 16 degrees, maybe getting a little higher than that locally. Our times of high water over there, 3:03, and again at 3:14 as we head into the afternoon. And finally, the outlook, so similarly mild on Thursday with some spells of sunshine. Later on Friday, though, rain arrives, unsettled come the weekend.
Great Western Railway sponsors the ITV Meridian weather.
So the rain is on its way. Now, before we go, a look at tonight's ITV programme On Assignment. With the details, here's Raghi Omar.
Join us tonight for On Assignment. This month, ahead of Great Britain hosting the COP26 International Climate Change Conference in Glasgow next week, On Assignment looks at 3 stories with the climate emergency at their heart. James Mates returns to the Ahr Valley in Germany, which earlier this year saw the country's deadliest natural disaster for more than half a century. But has this once-in-a-lifetime flood changed hearts and minds in Germany when it comes to fossil fuels? In Morocco, Lucy Watson visits the spectacular Noor solar power field with the promise of clean, renewable energy for the people of Morocco and further afield. Finally, Rebecca Barry is in Copenhagen to visit Copenhill, claimed to be the cleanest waste-to-energy power plant in the world. That's On Assignment tonight at 10:45.
Wow, that's one to watch, isn't it? Now, in just a moment, the ITV Evening News with Mary Knight. I'm going to put my teeth in now.
Natalie Bohr's got our late news just after 10:30 this evening. Join her if you can. But from all of us here at ITV Meridian, thanks for watching. Join us same time, same place tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.